Most anglers have a number saved in their head for what a real piece of fishing gear is supposed to cost. A decent rod has to be at least $150. A respectable reel needs to be pushing $200. Anything under $40 must be junk. And tackle shops have done a great job reinforcing that idea. Because the stuff near the front door with the fancy packaging and the name everyone recognizes tends to have a price to match. But here's the thing. That number in your head is wrong more often than it's right. And it's been costing you money every time you walk into that store. Hit subscribe before we get into it, because this channel is built around helping anglers spend less and fish smarter. I'm Jerry Davis, and after spending a lot of time around tackle shops, fishing docks, and gear comparisons, I can tell you with confidence that price and performance do not move in the same direction nearly as often as the fishing industry would like you to believe. Today, we're looking at 7 discount fishing products that are genuinely better buys than their expensive counterparts. Not because they're the same product with a different sticker, but because for the type of fishing most of us actually do, the extra money you'd spend on the premium version doesn't come back to you in ways that matter on the water. Let's get into it. The first one is Budget Monofilament Fishing Line. And I want to start here because line is probably the most undervalued and most overspent category in fishing tackle, at the same time, depending on who you're asking. On one end, you have anglers who throw $8 monofilament from a no-name brand and never change it. On the other end, you have guys spending $30 or more on fluorocarbon or premium mono and replacing it religiously. Both groups are probably making mistakes, but the second group is losing a lot more money in the process. Here's what most anglers overlook about monofilament. The differences between a $7 spool of Stren Original and a $25 spool of a premium mono are real, but they're narrow for most freshwater applications. Stren, Trilene, and similar mid-range monofilaments have been around long enough to have proven themselves across millions of fishing trips. The line holds knots reliably, stretches enough to act as a shock absorber when a fish makes a hard run, and offers enough abrasion resistance for typical bass and panfish cover. Anglers consistently report getting solid results with these lines across multiple seasons when they remember to replace the line periodically. The catch with monofilament, any monofilament, is that it degrades with UV exposure, heat, and repeated wetting and drying. You can buy a $40 spool of the most expensive mono available. But if you leave it on a reel, sitting in a hot vehicle for 8 months, it's going to be brittle and unreliable by the time you use it. The real advantage of premium mono tends to show up in very specific situations. Heavy cover with abrasive structure, extremely clear water where thinner diameter matters, or applications where you need finer control over stretch. For a weekend, angler throwing soft plastics or live bait in a lake or reservoir, the extra cost is genuinely difficult to justify. Buy the mid-range monofilament, replace it regularly, and put the savings towards something that actually makes a bigger difference. Now, the second product is budget spinning reels in the $25 to $50 range. And I know some of you just made a face. Bear with me. There was a time when a $30 spinning reel was almost guaranteed to be a headache. A rough, loose spool, a bail that folded at the worst moment, a drag that grabbed and skipped instead of pulling smoothly. That time is mostly in the past, at least for certain applications. Manufacturers like Zebco, Ugly Stick, and budget tier Shimano and Penn options have pushed component quality down into lower price ranges in a way that genuinely benefits casual and intermediate anglers. The important difference to understand here is intended use. A $30 spinning reel running 10-pound monofilament on a pond or lake for bass and panfish is a completely different conversation than that same reel being used in saltwater or being dragged through heavy cover on 6-pound. Fluorocarbon. The bearings in budget reels are typically fewer and less precisely machined than what you find in a Stratic or a Daiwa Exist. And the drag systems in inexpensive reels can be inconsistent under sustained pressure. So, if you're fighting a big saltwater species, running braid through heavy timber, or fishing a finesse presentation where every bit of drag smoothness matters. Spend more. But if you're a weekend freshwater angler, someone who takes a kid fishing a few times a year, or someone who keeps a backup rod rigged and ready in the truck, a decent budget spinning reel does the job. Without making you nervous every time it gets banged against the gunwale, anglers regularly report getting multiple seasons out of reels in this price range, with basic maintenance, rinsing after use, and adding a drop of oil to the appropriate points. The value here is real. Don't overpay for a reel you're going to leave in the sun on a rod holder all day. Let me know in the comments whether you've used one of these entry-level reels and how long it lasted you, because I think the experiences are going to vary a lot depending on how people fish and what they fish for. Third on the list is off-brand terminal tackle, hooks, split rings, and swivels. This one might actually be the most straightforward argument in the video, and here's why. When you're buying hooks by the pack of 10 at a tackle shop, you are often paying a disproportionate amount for the packaging, the logo, and the retail real estate that package is sitting on. Mustad, Owner, and Gamakatsu hooks are excellent. Nobody is disputing that. Their quality control is consistent, their coatings hold up, and their points stay sharp longer than cheap hooks under hard use. But when you're buying hooks in bulk from a reputable supplier, and there are several that sell directly or through Amazon, you can get hooks with comparable gauge wire and adequate sharpness for a fraction of the per hook cost. Here's where you need to be honest with yourself though. If you're throwing heavy jigs into rock piles and straightening out hooks on big bass, spend the money on quality. If you're rigging plastic worms in light to moderate cover, or using circle hooks for catfish on a set line, the difference between a premium hook and a decent off-brand hook matters a lot less. The same logic applies to barrel swivels and split rings. You don't need a premium snap swivel on a crappie rig. You need a snap swivel that won't open unexpectedly and doesn't add unnecessary weight. Off-brand swivels in the right pound test rating do that job reliably. Check the pound test rating on the package, make sure you're not buying something rated well below the line you're using, and don't overpay for chrome. The fourth product is soft plastic baits from budget brands, and this might surprise some of you. Soft plastics are one of the most imitated categories in fishing, and for good reason. They work. But the price difference between a name brand package of plastic worms, creature baits, or swim baits and their generic equivalents can be substantial, and the performance gap is often smaller than you'd expect. Anglers have been reporting solid results with off-brand soft plastics for years. The material consistency can vary more than it does with established brands, and some cheaper plastics tear at the hook point faster or have weaker scent retention if scent is a factor in the formula. But in terms of action in the water, the way a straight tail worm falls or a paddle tail swim bait kicks through a retrieve, budget plastics often perform within a very acceptable range. The practical consequence here is that you can afford to lose more baits when they're cheap. If you're fishing heavy brush or rocky structure where you're going to lose terminal tackle anyway, getting hung up and breaking off a 30-cent plastic versus an 80-cent plastic changes how aggressively you fish that cover. That's not a small thing. Anglers who are worried about losing expensive baits sometimes avoid the exact spots where fish are holding. Cheap plastics let you fish the way you should be fishing instead of the way that protects your tackle box. Now let's talk about something a lot of people overlook, and that's discount fishing rods under $60. Not the absolute cheapest fiberglass blanks with ceramic guides that ring like a tin can, but mid-tier discount rods from brands like Ugly Stick, Zebco Rome, or similar options in the $30 to $60 range. These rods have gotten dramatically better in the last decade. The Ugly Stick GX2, for example, uses a composite blank that offers a blend of sensitivity and durability that genuinely holds up in real fishing conditions. Anglers consistently report using these rods hard, dropping them, banging them in the truck bed, leaving them in the rain, and getting years of reliable use out of them. The trade-off, compared to a high modulus graphite rod in the $150 range, is real but may not matter to you. A high modulus graphite blank transmits vibration more efficiently, which means light bites on a drop shot or a shaky head show up more clearly in your hand. If you're a finesse angler targeting pressured fish in clear water, that sensitivity is worth paying for. But if you're throwing reaction baits, spinner baits, crankbaits, buzz baits, or using live bait where you're waiting for a pull rather than detecting a tick, the sensitivity difference between a budget composite rod and a premium graphite rod is not going to be the reason you catch fewer fish. And the durability of a fiberglass composite usually exceeds that of a thin graphite blank, which can crack or snap when abused. For a beginner, a young angler, or someone who simply fishes hard without babying equipment, the cheap rod often holds up better where it counts. Product number 6, and this one always generates debate, is discount hard-bodied lures, specifically crankbaits and topwater baits from lesser-known brands. Premium crankbaits from companies like Strike King, Rapala, and Lucky Craft are well made. The bill materials are durable, the lip angles are precise, the hooks are quality out of the box, and the bodies are balanced to run true at a range of retrieve speeds. When you get a well-made crankbait, it dives to the right depth, doesn't track sideways, and doesn't require tuning before you fish it. That consistency has value. But here's the reality. There is an enormous volume of hard-bodied lures being manufactured overseas and sold under various brand names that perform surprisingly well right out of the packaging. The action on many of these baits, particularly in the lipless crankbait and shallow-running crankbait categories, is difficult to distinguish from premium options on a typical retrieve. The difference shows up in durability. Cheaper hooks on discount crankbaits may dull faster. The bill may crack if it hits hard rock structure repeatedly, and the lip alignment may be slightly off on a percentage of baits in the pack, which causes them to track left or right on the retrieve. If you pull a discount crankbait out and it doesn't run true, bend the line, tie slightly in the opposite direction, and check again. Most can be tuned quickly. Swap the hooks for quality replacements, and the durability problem is mostly solved. The math here is simple. Replacing the hooks on a $4 crankbait with a pair of quality VMC or Mustad trebles adds maybe another $2 to the total cost. You've got $6 in a bait that runs well and has decent hardware on it. That same bait with a recognizable logo on it is often $16 to $2 on a tackle shop peg. If you're fishing water with heavy timber or rock that's going to cost you crankbaits regularly, the discount option makes a lot of financial sense. If you're tournament fishing, where you need every bait to run perfectly and replace quickly in a competitive situation, invest in the proven models. The 7th product, and I saved this one because it's the most broadly applicable, is discount fishing tackle storage. Plano, Flambeau, and similar established brands make solid tackle boxes and tray systems. But there is an entire category of off-brand fishing storage organizers that hold just as much, seal just as well, and cost significantly less. Think about how a tackle tray fails. The hinges crack, the latch opens accidentally in the boat, the dividers warp from temperature changes, or the clear lid becomes so scratched you can't see what's inside. These are legitimate failure points, and premium brands do address them better, but they don't address them 10 times better at 10 times the price. For terminal tackle storage, hooks, swivels, sinkers, jigs, discount organizers work fine. The contents aren't going anywhere sensitive, and a cracked divider in a hook organizer is an inconvenience, not a catastrophe. Where you might want to spend more is on waterproof tackle boxes that need to genuinely seal against rain and spray, or on larger system boxes that are going into the rod locker of a boat and getting opened and slammed 50 times a trip. In those situations, the hinge quality and latch durability of a premium box makes the price difference reasonable. For a kayak angler or bank fisherman who needs affordable, functional storage, off-brand organizers are consistently adequate and sometimes excellent. Think about the last fishing purchase you made. Did you check whether the price reflected actual performance in the conditions you fish, or did the packaging, the brand name, and the price itself convince you it had to be better? That's the question worth sitting with, because the fishing industry has done a remarkable job of making anglers feel like spending more is the same as fishing smarter. And those are not the same thing at all. Good fishing gear is the gear that fits the way you fish, survives the conditions you put it through, and does its job without creating another problem. Sometimes that gear costs $200. Plenty of times it costs $30. The angler who understands the difference between those two situations catches more fish and spends a lot less doing it. Tell me in the comments which one of these products surprised you, or if there's a budget product you've been using for years that outperforms something twice the price. I'd genuinely like to know what's working out there. Hit like, hit subscribe, and share this with someone who's about to spend too much money at the tackle shop. I'm Jerry Davis, and I'll catch you in the next one.